Good day, Crime Talk aficionados. It's Saturday, and what does that mean? It means that it is time for our weekly recap of all the top stories throughout the week in one convenient location. Thanks for watching. Hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you next time on Crime Talk. All right, next on the docket. That's right, the circus will be packing up because Judge Stephen Boyce has granted Chad Daybell's request to move the trial from Fremont County, and it will likely end up in Boise. Now, John Pryor, who's Chad Daybell's attorney, argued that significant media attention would affect the ability to find a fair and unbiased jury in Fremont County. Now, Pryor requested that proceedings move to Ada County, and Boyce granted the motion. Judge Boyce wrote in his ruling, "The court has no doubt that absent the extraordinary circumstances presented here, Fremont County would have been an ideal location for this trial and an ideal jury pool from which to select triers of fact to determine this case. However, this is no ordinary case." The prosecuting attorneys Rob Wood and Lindsay Blake argued that the trial should remain in Fremont County. They requested a sequestered jury could be brought in from another part of Idaho, but Judge Boyce denied that request. The court has determined that a transfer within the 7th Judicial District, such as Idaho Falls, Rigby, or Blackfoot, Idaho, would not alleviate the issue of case publicity. In making his decision, Judge Boyce said he considered the population from which to draw jurors, courthouse facilities, personnel staffing, courtroom availability, control of citizens and media attendance, and jury security. Now, Lori Vallow's case is still on hold after Judge Boyce committed her to the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare back in June when a mental health professional determined that she was not fit to stand trial because she was not competent to proceed. Now, a trial date for Chad Daybell's case has not been set. Have to commend Judge Boyce on making this decision early. Let's get this one over with, all right? The whole idea of bringing in jurors from the other part of the state, never seen it done. Can't imagine why it would be an efficient use of judicial resources in any way possible. Just pick up the show. Everybody's going to be inconvenienced by it, the court, the prosecutors, the defense, but it's a death penalty case. So the court, to make sure that the record is clean, basically has to make sure Chad Daybell gets super due process. That's right. That's a very lawyer-like term, super due process. But in a death penalty case, that's what people get. So we'll have to wait and see. Hopefully a trial date will be set shortly and the case will proceed. Now, as we mentioned, Lori Vallow is committed and she's been deemed not competent. And, well, the newly released documents in the Vallow Daybell matter reveal some shocking details of Lori Vallow's cult-like belief system of zombies and vibrations, plus more details of Charles and Lori's separation. Now, we have received all of the documents and we're putting up all of the videos in regards to the Chandler Police Department investigation. And we all heard stories about the whole being possessed and zombies and things like that. But why it wasn't acted upon early on, a little surprising. Why people weren't a little more concerned, a little surprising to say the least. But go check those out. Our Patreons are getting all that stuff uploaded right now, and then the videos will be available shortly. So the Chandler Police Department released documents last week, which included a detailed look into the lives of Lori and Chad Daybell via text message, computer files, and interviews with close friends and family members. In the main investigation report, the Chandler police detective wrote that they believed Charles Vallow was murdered and that his suspected killers were motivated by greed for Vallow's life insurance money, lust for each other, and strange religious beliefs. We're going to try to upload these thousands of pages of documents and pictures to the CrimeTalk Patreon page this afternoon. Now, Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow communicated with each other using code names or pet names like Lily, Bubby, Raphael, and sometimes standard text messaging instead of using burner phones or messaging systems inside of a karaoke phone app. Now, this is according to computer and phone files found by the investigators. Now, as the relationship between Lori and Chad grew, so did their cult-like religious beliefs, according to investigators. Several family members and friends interviewed by detectives described them as having a strange doomsday-focused belief system, and some of the friends acknowledged adopting the beliefs as well. At times, as many as 10 people were part of the loose religious group that met to pray, drive out evil spirits, and seek revelations from beyond the spiritual veil. Though the beliefs of Lori Vallow's friends described to detectives were loosely based in theology from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, they veered into the extreme. The report said Lori and Chad Daybell believed in reincarnation and that Lori Daybell was a goddess sent to bring the second coming of Christ. The pair also allegedly believed that they had special powers, with Lori Vallow telling one of the friends that she could teleport between Arizona and Hawaii. Chad Daybell reportedly told the group that he had a portal in his home where he could receive revelations and travel to other realms. Lori Vallow's close friend Melanie Gibbs told investigators Chad and Lori Daybell drew people into their circle of believers by giving them bits of information and flattered followers by telling them they were part of the select few who were supposed to carry out this special spiritual mission. Those who questioned the beliefs were pushed out of the group, and the Vallow and Daybell used a special scoring system to determine whether people were good or evil, according to Gibbs. Each person was assigned a number to indicate how many times they had lived before, as well as a light or dark rating to indicate if they made a contract with God or Satan. People were also given vibration scores and trustworthiness ratings, and those with high enough vibrations were deemed to be translated, holding special powers. Vallow and Daybell believed zombies were people who had died and their bodies had been possessed by evil spirits. The group would spend time praying to get rid of the zombies and believed that if they were successful, the possessed person would physically die, freeing their soul from limbo. Lori Vallow told some of her friends that her estranged husband, Charles Vallow, was a zombie, according to investigators, and some in the group regularly joined her in praying for Vallow's demise. After Vallow was shot and killed by Alex Cox, Lori Vallow's brother, during an argument, Cox reportedly told another follower that he didn't feel bad because he killed a zombie. The group also believed that once a person became exalted, they couldn't be held responsible for their actions on earth. Now, because Lori was already exalted, investigators were told that she would often slam her hand on the counter and state, "Doesn't count for me." The police investigators also uncovered computer documents that indicated Charles Vallow discovered his wife having an affair with Chad Daybell just weeks before his death. Charles Vallow confronted Lori Vallow in a text message and then reached out to Tammy Daybell to let her know that their spouses were cheating. Text messages released in these documents paint a picture of a romantic relationship between Chad and Lori Vallow long before Tammy Daybell died. Chad, an author of the Latter-day Saint fiction books, began writing his own story to Lori in a series of text messages, according to these documents. A detective described the writings as a romance novel of sorts and noted that it followed a relationship between the couple, but names were changed to James and Elena. When their hands touched, he felt a shock pass through him, and his heart started beating fast, the text read. Elena was gorgeous and vivacious, and James was a little intimidated, yet honored that she would talk to him. The story took an R-rated turn, with Chad describing in detail a sexual relationship between James and Elena. Throughout the story, James is obsessed with the clothes Elena wore and her physical features, calling her an exalted goddess who had come to Earth to perform a special mission. The mission included Elena being with James. Chad sent text messages to Lori telling her that he felt like a grown-up version of Harry Potter who has to live with the Dudleys in his little space under the stairs. He said that every few weeks he gets to have his own time with Lori, his goddess lover, but then has to go back to his family and feels trapped. He ended the text saying he knows that freedom is coming. Lori texted back saying that Chad should spend time with his family and his wife and that she didn't want to be in the way anymore. Despite this, she packed up her and her family's belongings and moved to Rexburg, Idaho at the end of August. Now, on October 5th of 2019, Chad texted Lori, "Hello, sweet angel. Big news about Tammy. Please let me know if you're awake and I can talk. I love you." The news was that Tammy had been taken over by a demonic entity named Viola. Chad claimed Tammy's sister was responsible for being possessed, and Tammy's personality would change quickly because of this spirit attaching itself to her. He also texted Lori, "Not fully sure of the time for removal, but once her actions verify the differences, I don't want to wait," Chad wrote. Chad called 911 on October 19th, 2019, saying that his wife Tammy had died in her sleep shortly before Tammy's death. Lori's two children, 7-year-old Joshua J.J. Vallow and 16-year-old Tylee Ryan, vanished. Their bodies were found buried in Chad's backyard in June of 2020. So I think it comes to no surprise when you start reading these documents. Sure, we heard a lot about it, but when you listen to these interviews of family members and friends talking about this, yeah, I can see why the medical professionals have said that she is not competent to proceed. I personally have seen cases where people truly believe that they were special or godlike, and they were simply not competent. They were absolutely delusional. We'll see if Lori Vallow can be restored and actually stand trial for the allegations that she has pending against her. We'll have to see. All right, let's get to the docket. The Teton County, Wyoming medical examiner announced in a press conference today that Gabby Petito died of strangulation. Now, the coroner, Dr. Brent Blue, addressed the media on Tuesday afternoon, weeks after announcing that Petito, who was 22, had died of an apparent homicide. Now, Petito's boyfriend, as just about everybody knows, Brian Laundrie, is a person of interest in Petito's disappearance, but has not yet been named a suspect in her death investigation. And we'll talk about that, why. Now, Gabby Petito's press conference note that the cause of death was obviously strangulation, homicide. Time of death, 3 to 4 weeks is an estimation from when the body was found. How do they estimate that? Well, normally it's based upon the amount of the insects that have accumulated. They can base that based upon the time, based upon the decomposition. Rather interesting stuff. If you've ever looked into that or been to the body farm, it's absolutely fascinating how they do that. Now, the questions that were also asked of the good coroner there are whether Brian Laundrie killed her. And the doctor says, we only have a cause of death. You have to contact the FBI. Well, that's pretty obvious. Then he was asked, can you comment on any other bruising on the body, any older bruises or cuts? He says, no one. The doctor said that no other information about the autopsy will be released, just the cause of death. The press didn't take no for an answer, basically kept asking questions. Why did it take a month for the process to be finished? He said they were being very exact in their examination and detail, and they were waiting for various specialists to come in, waiting on toxicology to return. The question was asked whether there were any DNA samples taken from Gabby's remains. Question, can you tell us the condition of her remains? The doctor stated the DNA was taken to law enforcement, and all that he can say is the condition is that the body was outside for 3 to 4 weeks. So you can imagine what shape the body was in. Probably not great. The press continued. Do you have any doubts it's Brian? The doctor stated he can't comment. Question, how did you arrive at the manner of death? The The doctor stated you have 4 choices, obviously homicide, suicide, accidental, or natural, and it depends on a lot of other circumstances. We've talked about that many times here on Crime Talk. The doctor wouldn't comment on whether the body was buried. There was a question about whether any impact from the weather that was on the body or animals, and the doctor simply stated that the body was outside for 3 to 4 weeks. So obviously you have decomposition. Let's face it, Mother Nature is out there. Nature is out there. It's not uncommon for animals to come and, do what animals do to bodies that are out in the forest there. So I'm gonna guess the body was not in great shape. When asked about where the body was located, was that where the murder took place, or whether the body was dumped there, the coroner would not comment. When asked were there any drugs in the system, the coroner said he would not comment. He did state, however, that the test determined that Gabby was not pregnant. And when asked what the date of the death will be on the death certificate, the doctor stated that the death certificate is not done yet, but that the state of Wyoming allows for an approximate death, so there won't be an exact answer on that. The coroner was also asked, can you speak on what it was like doing your job as a small town coroner with a huge media presence? The doctor said, well, this is one of obviously many homicides that they've had to deal with. And his response was, it's a shame that others don't get this kind of coverage. Maybe it's simply because she was a blogger. I think most people would feel that same way, that why is this case any more of interest than other homicides that take place? And obviously the fact that she was in fact a blogger or putting out a travel blog maybe had something to do with it. Very interesting. Strangulation. I mean, obviously we've talked about this before. So if you haven't been to Crime Talk, strangulation, in my humble opinion, is one of the epitomes of after deliberation. Because yes, somebody can pass out rather quickly from being strangled from loss of air, but to really strangle somebody, you have to get, we're talking 5-6 minutes, based upon what experts have told me over the years. So that's like the epitome of after deliberation, and you're literally looking the person in the face if that's the way it happened. We'll have to see whether the hyoid bone was fractured or anything like that as information comes out. But there must be some problems with the autopsy, probably because the body was outside. So it'll be curious to see how they determined that it was in fact strangulation based upon the body and probably the decomposition. It'd be very, very interesting. There may be some doubts that can be raised by that. We'll have to wait and see. As more news develops, we will let you know. Now, Gabby Petito's death at such a young age is obviously a tragedy, and Brian Laundrie is currently charged only with the unauthorized use of a debit card belonging to Gabby, and Brian Laundrie is only considered a person of interest in relationship to Gabby Petito's demise. Now, at this time, Brian is still missing, and when he is located, he will address the pending fraud charges against him. We'll see if further charges are filed. And for those of you who don't know, Petito was first reported missing by her parents over a month ago on September 11th, and after an extensive search, her remains were found on September 19th in the Teton National Forest. Petito's body was found a 5 to 10 minute walk from where her van was last seen. And now Brian Laundrie's family members have reportedly received threats to themselves and their children in connection to Gabby Petito's disappearance and murder. This case and the search for Laundrie has been obviously a huge focus for media attention, coverage, and citizen protesters have at times congregated at the home of Laundrie's parents, where Brian and Gabby were living before they left on their trip, and also camped out at the home of Brian's sister, Cassie Laundrie. The Laundrie family has apparently contacted the police numerous times about these threats. Cassie's husband has said he's received multiple texts from random numbers threatening to kill his family and kidnap his kids. Clearly, people don't do that. It's not necessary. He had nothing to do with anything of this. And Cassie Laundrie recently came under scrutiny after reports that she had also gone camping in early September with Brian and her parents. Previously, she had given an interview saying that she had not been able to speak to her brother. And then Cassie claims that her answers were taken out of context, and now she insists that she has been cooperative with the police since the start of the investigation, and she would say where he was if she knew. And most people know Brian Laundrie is still currently wanted only on the debit card fraud charges and has been on the run now for a month. The case won't go cold until officials have examined all evidence and exhausted all possible leads regarding his location, which may take months or even years. Now, Dog, the bounty hunter, whose real name is Dwayne Chapman, is going back to Colorado to receive treatment for an ankle injury he experienced during the search for Laundrie. Now, while he's away, Dog's Florida team will continue to search while he processes leads in Colorado remotely. Dog is also reportedly raising funds to continue what he calls the expensive search. Now, as you may recall, Dog the Bounty Hunter joined the hunt for Brian Laundrie on September 27th, 4 days after the warrant was issued. Now, Brian Laundrie has not been seen since September 13th. Now, a lot of people may recall that I originally thought that perhaps the dog showing up was some sort of publicity stunt. And a lot of people pushed back and said, well, Scott, at least he's out there trying to do something. And I said, that's great. I hope he does it. He's got a lot of money. He can certainly do this because, it's not cheap to take time off and go do all these other things like search for Brian Laundrie. He's hired search teams, what have you. He's even made a $10,000 donation for any information as it relates to Brian Laundrie, which seems like a small amount for a multi-millionaire who was able to secure at least interest in having people have a new show regarding Dog the Bounty Hunter. Now, I'm not saying that he didn't injure himself. I'm just saying, wow, it almost seems like mission is accomplished. And I wonder how many people will actually remain. And it's curious that he needs to raise money for the search for, like I said, a huge TV star like that. You would think would have millions and millions of dollars to fund this. Something that I raised a while back, that seems rather expensive, but at least he has the resources to keep going. So everyone who said, Scott, why are you picking on Dog the Bounty Hunter? Not picking, just stating facts. As I've told you, one of the beautiful things about the job of being a criminal defense attorney is you get to talk about, well, the elephant in the room, and you get to ask those questions. And so the people that doubted me and thought, Scott, why are you being so mean? Well, maybe it's just a coincidence. He just happened to hurt himself and has to head home when the trail has gone cold. Let me know, was I too harsh or did I call it the right way? Let me know. All right, let's move on to the docket. Gabby Petito's body has been held and basically studied and examined for a month to determine ultimately how she died. And now that we know, the family is finally allowed to go and get her and lay her to rest. Petito's parents are reportedly heading to Wyoming Wednesday morning from Long Island. They'll retrieve Gabby's remains. They'll have her cremated and then return to New York this weekend with her ashes. Now, as you may recall, the Teton County coroner announced that the cause of death to be strangulation and the manner of death, obviously homicide. The coroner noted that Gabby's homicide seemed to be carried out in a lot of anger, while also pointing out that the body had been left out in the wilderness for at least 3 to 4 weeks before she was finally found last month. Now, a lot of anger. We've talked about this before. Strangulation, there's a lot of anger there. And to actually kill somebody through strangulation takes a significant amount of time. Also, when you're dealing with the remains that have been outside, you don't know exactly what you're going to get. Obviously, certain amounts of decomposing takes place, and you also have to assume that the creatures in the wild may have retrieved some of the remains as well and hauled those off. So you never know exactly what you're going to get. Eventually, we may ultimately get that information, but that may have been some of the reason why the autopsy took so long. Now, a lot of people say, well, isn't this obvious? Why isn't Brian Laundrie being charged. Isn't as obvious? He was the last one supposedly with her. He drives her van back, allegedly uses the credit card on the way back to his family residence in Florida. And now, obviously, he has been on the run, on the lam, so to speak, but he hasn't been found. Well, I'm telling you, it's not that simple. Basically, the police have to be able to show that it was, in fact, Brian Laundrie that committed the crime against Gabby Petito. Now, the FBI was looking for DNA. They went to the house, they got permission, and they collected some items of DNA from Brian Laundrie's house a few weeks ago. But with a body being out in the forest, the weather, etc., DNA may not be able to be there. And so the mere fact that Brian Laundrie was there, it may seem somewhat plausible. However, you don't know, and assuming if he's ever found or charged or brought to trial, his version of the events may be quite different, that maybe she left. He thought she left. He didn't know. He headed back. You never know. But the reality of it is the prosecutors have to be able to say that he's the one that did it, and they have to have more evidence other than, well, we think he was the last one with her. I understand it looks bad for Brian Laundrie. We got to give him the presumption of innocence. But remember, if it was such a slam dunk, and if it was so easy to put Brian Laundrie responsible for the death of Gabby Petito, it's not one thing to basically know it, but it's another to actually be able to prove it. Short of a confession at this point, I'm not sure they're going to have the physical evidence to do it. There may be some circumstantial evidence that he was there, he left, he didn't talk to the police, but guess what? You can't use his silence against him in any way, and he left before any charges were filed. So you have to wonder, what evidence does the prosecution really have at this point? Like I said, it's one thing to be able to think it, have that hunch, to believe in your heart that he did it, and he very well may have. We don't know for sure. But it's another thing to be able to prove it in a court of law. And remember, that's the only thing that matters. You have to be able to prove your case with sufficient legal and competent evidence that you got to get in through the rules of evidence. It's a lot more difficult than most people think. We'll see if charges are filed here shortly now that we have the autopsy result, and we'll see if the prosecution has the link to actually say that Brian Laundrie, is the one that committed the act. Wait and see. Now, I'm not really sure this is news, but Brian Laundrie's father was spotted mowing his lawn in Florida just the other day, less than 24 hours after the cause of death of Gabby was released. Now, Chris refused to react when people asked about Petito's autopsy results, which showed that she had been manually strangled during her ill-fated cross-country trip with their 23-year-old son. I mean, the guy, you still got to mow your lawn. Your son is a fugitive. I get people are upset, but guess what? Protesting outside somebody's house like that is not going to one day just make them crack and say, let me tell you where Brian is, or let me tell you how he got away. It's not going to happen. Frankly, save your energy. Maybe use some of that energy to go look for Brian Laundrie somewhere rather than simply harassing other people. Police reportedly responded to the Laundrie residence the other day when protesters standing outside their home heckled the family after the latest developments in the investigation. The protesters, you can see in this video here, started yelling, "Come on, dirty Laundries. Come on, you guys like to strangle people." Now, really, is that really going to solve much? And really, frankly, that's just harassment. Brian Laundrie's has obviously been on the run for a month now, and a lot of people, a lot of survival experts are saying he's either A, had help, B, blending in, or C, dead. Or the CrimeTalk hunch or version is that he is sitting in a warm tropical location drinking warm fuzzy drinks on the beach. Who knows? No one really knows for sure. And, the search will continue from here as well. The bottom line is that nobody knows where he is. And until they find him, there's nothing that's really going to be done. That's the bottom line. And now the news media is looking for so much information on Brian Laundrie simply for the fact that they haven't been able to find him. The hunt for him has gone somewhat cold. Now the news media has actually started quoting middle school friends who want to remain anonymous. I have real problems revealing anonymous information when there's nothing really to back it up. And if people aren't willing to stand up and put their name behind it, frankly, I'm not going to talk about it either. And frankly, it's rather useless. So just remember, ladies and gentlemen, anybody can say anything. It's another thing to actually get up and say it and mean it and be able to back it up in court. All right, Barry Morphew strikes again. That's right. He wins again. Remember Barry Morphew, right? Accused of killing his wife, Suzanne Morphew, was in custody, went to the preliminary hearing. The judge found probable cause because it's very low standard of proof. But as I predicted, the court would not find proof evident presumption great because I thought that the evidence was not exactly overwhelming that Barry Morphew was in fact guilty. Barry Morphew was in court yesterday, and he got to see Judge Murphy for the first time since being let out of the Chaffee County Jail, depending on which part of Colorado you reside in. And he was released on a $500,000 cash bond. Well, the intervention technology report, that's basically the people that are monitoring him. They informed the court on September 21 that the GPS monitor was unable to be picked up or any cell phone signal available in the area where Barry Morphew is living. The intervention office told the court that they would be unable to provide the court with any battery or tamper alert information when Barry Morphew was basically at his house. And then yesterday, Wednesday, Judge Murphy ruled Morphew can continue to live in the home next to his old house off Puma Path in Maysville, which is a town right next to Salida, without a GPS monitoring him. The judge's condition is that Barry Morphew has to go to Poncho Springs, the next town over, to have the information downloaded every day. Now, this comes after the district attorney, Linda Stanley, and deputy district attorney, Jeff Lindsay, wanted the court to step in and reconsider Morphew's bond. The district attorney's office alleged that Morphew was living too close to witnesses who are on a no contact list, as well as the Morphew's old residence. Now, Morphew, who's 53, was seen stepping out in a black t-shirt and jeans on Monday, loading tubs of men's clothing into the back of a truck at a Salida storage unit. And Morphew was spotted at the storage unit with his alleged girlfriend, Shoshona Darkey, for the first time. As you may remember, she has her own case pending regarding the potential trespassing and picking up of a package at the residence where Barry Morphew was residing. Now, prosecutors have demanded that Morphew leave the property where he has been staying since he was set free in September and move into Darkey's modest downtown Salida home, where they say he is paying the $2,000 a month rent. The two-bedroom home also happens to be right down the street from the Chaffee County Courthouse. Morphew is currently staying at a 4-bedroom luxury Airbnb rental located just a few yards from the end of the driveway of the Colorado home that he shared with his missing wife, Suzanne. The 2-story property, which sits in a remote wooded area and has patchy satellite reception, comes complete with a glass-fronted balcony and manicured grounds that overlook the former Morphew's home. According to the filings, which were filed with the court on September 21, Morphew's new residence is too close to his former home and that of the neighbor, a trial witness, Gene Ritter, who he is banned from contacting. Ritter was the individual who contacted the police for Morphew when his daughter said that they had not heard from Suzanne all day on Mother's Day. Now, Morphew's trial is set for May of 2022. His next court appearance is scheduled for November 9th. I'll be surprised if the trial actually goes first setting, but I hope that it does. And, the district attorney must be getting a little frustrated. They didn't get to keep Barry Morphew in custody after what I consider to be a very weak preliminary hearing, and we will just have to wait and see. But, now the DA can't even get a bond revoked. And I say that jokingly, okay? The bond has been set. Barry Morphew hasn't violated the bond. He's been doing what he's been told. They shouldn't revoke his bond. Now, my guess is if he steps out of line and does something or misses a download for any reason, guess what? I think the judge will throw him back in custody. But for right now, he's in the judge's good graces. All right, next on the docket, Alex Murdaugh. Remember, he was released from his rehabilitation, his rehab facility yesterday, whereupon he was met by the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division officers and met with an arrest warrant. He was taken into custody, and obviously they don't get to just drive Mr. Murdaugh home. He had to go to the closest jail and be advised of the fact that he has charges pending in South Carolina. So Mr. Murdaugh had a couple of options. He could either A, waive extradition and say, I will go back voluntarily, or B, say, I'm going to fight extradition. If Mr. Murdaugh had chose to fight extradition, the courts in Florida would have had to have notified the courts in South Carolina, and then the governor from the state of Florida would have to send a letter to the governor of South Carolina saying, do you want this person? And then the governor would then send back a governor's warrant saying, yes, we want this individual, bring him back. There would also be an identity hearing saying, is this the right Alex Murdaugh that we are looking for? Well, Alex Murdaugh appeared in court today in Florida, and he waived extradition. I hereby acknowledge that I am the above named person. I am wanted on a pending arrest warrant charging the crimes captioned above. I hereby waive the issuance and service of the Florida governor's rendition, extradition warrant, and all other procedures incidental to extradition proceedings, and agree to remain in the custody of the sheriff of Orange County, Florida, and voluntarily return to said demanding state in the custody of the duly accredited agent of said state. I hereby release the sheriff of Orange County and or any member of the Orange County Sheriff's Office from any liability relating to my arrest and custody in connection with the above captioned case. Signed by the fugitive 10/15 of 2021, that being Alex Murdaugh. And obviously the charges are, that's right, fraud, obtaining property by false pretenses related to the crimes of basically defrauding the insurance company and the deceased housekeeper's family of the $4 million that he was able to obtain by submitting claims to the insurance company. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. I wish him well. I'm glad he made it through rehab if he truly needed it. But now the time to come clean and accept responsibility is now, Mr. Murdaugh. We'll give you the presumption of innocence, but you know as well as I do, Mr. Murdaugh, you are going to prison. All right, that's all we have for you today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on Crime Talk.